Good afternoon, students. This is Mrs. Lancaster, and this is going to be your Chapter 2 homework assignment. It's pretty simple, but I thought I would go through it with you since it's all very new to you. All we're going to be doing is going to be adding some tables, creating a query, setting up the relationships. So the first thing we're asked to do is to create a new table in Design View called Donations. I've already created it for you, but in order to create, you should select Create and then Table Design. Looking at this table in Design View, you can see that we added the donation ID as the primary key so that we can look up our donors and our plants. We have donor ID, plant ID, date, and the donation amount. And it tells you to change your data types thusly. The next thing you're asked to do is to create the plant, is going to be to add the data. So if you look in Datasheet View, you can see that I've added the data, and it's supposed to be sorted by donation amount in descending sequence, so you can see that that has been chosen already. The next thing we're going to do is to import an Excel spreadsheet. Now this is really simple to do. We're going to import it into a table that Access creates. So you select External Data and Import Excel. Browse to the file that you should have saved. Well, if I could find my folder, there. And it's going to be the AO2 Greater H1 Plant spreadsheet. We want to import the source data into a new table in the current database. The worksheet is going to be called Plants, and you can see the data here. The first row contains column headings. Those column headings are going to become your field names, so that's very important. Plant ID is going to be our primary key, so we want no duplicates, and we definitely want it indexed. So we're going to choose our own primary key, which is going to be Plant ID. And we're going to import it to the table Plants, which I've already done. Now you'll notice in the Design View of Plants that we want our plant ID to be a long integer, and we imported it as, we imported it as double. So you need to change that to a long integer. The next thing we're asked to do is to, I believe, establish our relationships. So in Database Tools, we'll go to Relationships, and when you show the table, you're going to select all three tables. Then we have a foreign key, that's what this is called, a foreign key of donor ID to donor ID in the donor table, and it's a one-to-many relationship. Let me see if I can edit this so you can see how to set it up. We want to enforce referential integrity to make sure that we have a donor in the donor table and a donor in the donations table always. So they have to be there. And then cascade update related fields. That means if we change something in donors, it'll automatically be changed in donations. The same kind of one-to-many relationship is going to exist between the plant ID, which is the foreign key, and the plant ID in table Plants. Again, this is going to be a one-to-many relationship. So we've got one plant ID in plants, but we can have many plant IDs in donations. And that's how you find how you set up those relationships. Then we want to create a query using the simple query wizard. It's going to be a simple query. It's going to be donations will be our table. It wants us to use donor ID and donation amount fields. Donor ID and donation amount. We want a detailed record. And I'm going to go ahead and call this donations query. Then we're going to edit the query. And we want our donation amount to be greater than 100. So we've got this criteria row here in our query. And we want it to be greater than 100. So that's all of the records that we're going to see. And you can see there that it's greater than 100. Sort the query in descending order by donation amount field. So we select the donation amount field and select descending, and it sorts the data for us. And then we can save the query. The next thing it asks you to do is to create a new query in design view and add all three tables. Add the donation field from the donors table, the donor's last name, first name, and phone fields. So I've done that. Let's see, which one is it? I think it's this one. And you'll notice that you've got the field name, the table it comes from, and the sort order here. And you can change that sort order with that drop-down button. The next thing it asks you to do is make a copy of the donations over $100, or the plant pickup list, I believe. To remove a field, you highlight the field and cut it. And then we've sorted in ascending sequence. And that's all there is to this particular activity. You shouldn't have any trouble with it. Again, I encourage you to read your chapter and do the hands-on exercises. There's a link in announcements for the data files that you'll need for those hands-on exercises. And if you have any questions, be sure and contact me.